Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor K. Srinivas from Pondicherry University. I teach philosophy at that university. I am also course coordinator of Indian religion and philosophy and the subject Indian culture. In this module, we are going to learn about Visishtadvaita, and the following objectives are going to be taken care of. What is Visishtadvaita? What is the nature of reality? How is liberation possible? Like Advaita Vedanta, Visishtadvaita is also one of the oldest Vedantic traditions. One of the first systematic exponents of this school of thought is Sri Ramanuja, who lived between 1017 to 1137. However, he is not the founder of this school. The other notable Visishtadvaitins are Yadava Prakasha, Yamuna, Periyanambi, Goshtipurna. The fundamental tenets of Visishtadvaita are diametrically opposed to Advaita, which is absolute and unqualified non-dualism. The qualified non-dualism of Sri Ramanuja sets the task of providing an interpretation that would at once preserve the identity of Brahman and the difference between Atman and Brahman, and also between Jiva and God. In his seminal work, Sri Bhashya, Sri Ramanuja equates Brahman, the supreme reality, with Lord Vishnu. One of the most distinguishing features of Visishtadvaita is it accepts Prasthanatraya, namely Brahma Sutras of Badarayana, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. Apart from that, it also accepts Pancharatragama to arrive at qualified non-dualism. Coming to its metaphysics, Sri Ramanuja accepts the Upanishadic interpretation like Shankara, that Brahman is the ultimate reality. But for Shankara, Brahman is Nirguna. According to Sri Ramanuja, Brahman is the unity of the differences constituting the world of our empirical experience. In other words, Sri Ramanuja's Brahman is identity in difference, Bheda Bheda. Sri Ramanuja argues that pure identity as viewed by Shankara is an abstraction and it would be pure nothing. The question of identity arises only when there is also difference. This is the argument of Sri Ramanuja against Shankara's view. Identity presupposes difference just as the latter presupposes the former. Sri Ramanuja finds justification in some rare Upanishadic passages which are popularly known as Ghataka texts. For instance, it is found in the Svetasvatara Upanishad that there are three ultimate existences constituent. For instance, it is found in the Svetasvatara Upanishad that there are three ultimate existences constituting the absolute: the eternal, the omniscient, the omnipotent God, the eternal but powerless soul, and the eternal matter. Therefore, Sri Ramanuja held that Brahman is the unity of different selves and material objects of the phenomenal world. This is the reason why Ramanuja called Chit Achit Visishtam Brahman. This is the reason why his philosophy is popularly known as Visishtadvaita. Brahman is the substratum of these constituents Strictly speaking, Sri Ramanuja's concept of unity is not unity but only union. From a logical point of view, it is only a union of ultimately distinct and separate parts. This is clear from Sri Ramanuja's threefold categorical distinctions. The support adhara, the supported adheya, the controller, the niyamaka, the controlled niyama, and the lord seshin, and the servant the sesha. The first member of each of these refers to Brahman, the God, and the second to the world. In other words, for Sri Ramanuja, the distinction between Brahman and the world is ultimate and indissoluble. For instance, Sri Ramanuja says that Brahman is qualified by Chit and Achit. Chit represents selves and Achit represents the material world. So the qualities cannot exist independent of Brahman. Therefore, they are dependent on Brahman. Although they are as eternal as Brahman, yet they are relatively eternal when compared to the absolute eternal reality called Brahman. This view is further substantiated by Sri Ramanuja's statement that Brahman is related to world as the soul to body, just as the soul of a man, although different from his body, controls and guides the body. In the similar fashion, although Brahman is different from the world, it controls and guides it. Thus, Brahman is regarded as the ruler and controller of the world. To put it more succinctly, reality is like a person. The various selves and the material objects are its body, and Brahman is its soul. Such a kind of relationship is technically known as a prathak siddhi relationship or inseparable relationship. What is this inseparable relationship? Brahman is inseparable from its attributes or qualities, namely Chit and Achit. Similarly, Chit and Achit, being dependent on Brahman for their existence, are also inseparable from Brahman. Such a relationship is technically called a pratik siddhi relation. Just as the soul of a man, although different from his body, controls and guides the body, in this similar fashion, although Brahman is different from the world, controls and guides it. The Brahman is regarded as the ruler and controller of the world. Apart from that, since there cannot be any genuine relation of any kind, whatever between two entities of which one is real and the other is unreal, from this it follows that the world of variety and multiplicity, in that it is related to Brahman, is real, although not independently real. This is to say that individual selves and objects are real qualities and modes of Brahman. Individual selves and material objects are related to Brahman as parts to a whole. Each part is separate, yet not different in substance from the whole. Just as qualities are real, but cannot exist independent of the substance of which they are qualities. Similarly, souls and objects are real as parts of ultimate reality, but cannot exist independently of it. This is the reason that Sri Ramanuja's absolute is not unqualified entity, but identity in difference. What is the identity? There is an identity between Brahman and its attributes. The difference consists in that Brahman cannot be reduced to its qualities, or the qualities cannot be elevated to the level of Brahman. Therefore, this is strictly called identity indifference. Coming to knowledge, Sri Ramanuja, unlike Shankara, viewed that knowledge analytically implies the knower and the known. Therefore, it cannot be identified either with the knower or with the unknown. If there is no knower, then there is no known too. Sri Ramanuja argued that experience of reality is not an experience in which the self-non-self distinction is obliterated, but one in which the self becomes conscious of the unity of reality. The self remains distinct even in the experience of ultimate reality, just as the distinction between the knower and the known holds through and through in the experience of the empirical world. For example, in the process of perception, there is a polarity between subject and object. The subject perceives the object, yet the subject and object, they are independent of each other. Similar is the case with the knower and the known. The distinction between the knower and the known continues to exist in the empirical world according to Sri Ramanuja. The concept of attribute consciousness, dharma bhuta jnana, is one of the most central features of Ramanuja's Visishtadvaita. According to this view, consciousness directed towards the objects as a quality dharma of the Atman. To illustrate this point, one has to understand that one's perception of an object has three factors. To illustrate this point, one has to understand that one's perception of an object has three factors. What are these three factors? Myself as the conscious of the object, my consciousness of the object, and the object of which I am conscious. My consciousness of the object reveals itself to me, but not to itself. If it reveals itself to itself, it will be a person or ego or an I. But my consciousness of an object cannot be treated as a person. To claim that I know the object is the same as saying that I know the object. Cognition and the cognition of that cognition are the same, for cognition is self-revealing. No other light is needed to reveal the presence of a light. So these three factors are very, very important according to Sri Ramanuja when he was trying to highlight the nature of dharma bhuta jnana. Now, my I, as the knower, reveals itself to itself, but not to the consciousness revealing the object. Thus, we have two forms of consciousness here. One that reveals itself to another, and the other that reveals itself to itself only. The former belongs to the latter, and it is its attribute dharma. According to Sri Ramanuja, I consciousness can never know itself without the role of attribute consciousness. And the attribute consciousness arises only when it reveals an object. Therefore, I can know itself when it knows an object. Of course, the whole thing is very complicated here. In the case of Advaita Vedanta, the knowledge and Atman are inseparable from each other. Knowledge cannot be a dharma of Atman or Brahman, for knowledge is part and parcel of Brahmanatman. But in the case of Visishtadvaita, Sri Ramanuja holds that Atman as a self is different from its quality called knowledge. Therefore, knowledge becomes the dharma and its substratum is Atman. Therefore, this distinction is throughout maintained by Sri Ramanuja in his epistemology. That is the reason the notion of Dharmabhuta Jnana acquires importance in his epistemology. Further, it must be noticed that Sri Ramanuja distinguishes between the consciousness that turned inward, pratyak, and that which is turned outward, parak. These two are called existential and attribute consciousnesses, respectively. These two, not only that, they are inseparable but also cannot work independent of each other. The existential consciousness, which knows itself only when the attribute consciousness also works. For example, in the absence of attribute consciousness, the existential consciousness does not know anything of itself. That is the argument advanced by Sri Ramanuja in his Sri Bhashya. For example, in deep sleep, attribute consciousness does not work, for there is no object in that state. Since the attribute consciousness does not work in this state, even the existential consciousness does not know itself. Both these consciousnesses are eternal, but the existential consciousness is atomic in size, anuparimana, for the Atman is atomic and the latter infinite. Although the attribute consciousness is infinite, it has the power to contract and expand like a coil. When it contracts completely, we do not know anything. If it contracts partially, then we have finite knowledge. If it expands completely, then we have infinite knowledge. The attribute consciousness is substance, dravya, although it is an attribute of Atman. Now coming to Sri Ramanuja's critique of Shankara's Mayavada, we have 7 important arguments advanced by Sri Ramanuja against Shankara's Mayavada. These 7 arguments are popularly known as the 7 great untenables Saptanubhupatti. They are as follows. The nature of Maya Avidya is ignorance. They are not two different things. The former is called cosmic illusion and the later individual illusion. Maya is basically understood in 2 different senses. In one sense it is ignorance, and in another sense it is the power of Brahman by which the empirical world is manifested. Sri Ramanuja's first objection is, if ignorance is what produces the world, where does ignorance exist? Certainly it cannot be said to exist in the jiva, for the jiva itself is produced by ignorance. Therefore, it is absurd to say that effect produces the cause. Similarly, it cannot be said that ignorance exists in Brahman, for otherwise Brahman cannot be omniscient. Normally we say that Brahman is omniscient, therefore there is no element of ignorance in Brahman. If that were the case, where does this ignorance exist? That is the question raised by Sri Ramanuja. The Advaitins do not have any answer to this question. The second objection is that if ignorance is the veil that conceals the real nature of Brahman, then Brahman cannot be self-revealing power. Not only that, Maya or Avidya can veil Brahman only when it forgets itself. But it can forget itself only when it is veiled by Maya and Avidya. This is another vicious circle. The third objection is that we cannot understand whether Maya Avidya is positive or negative. If it is positive, it cannot be destroyed by knowledge, as held by Advaitins. For instance, knowledge only recognizes the existence of the positive, but never destroys it. If it is a negative, it cannot combine itself with Brahman to produce the world. As a negative, it is only absence of knowledge, but absence causes nothing. Therefore, to say that Maya Avidya is both positive and negative is to uphold a self-contradictory position according to Sri Ramanuja. The fourth objection is that Shankara's Advaita considers ignorance as neither real nor unreal nor both, sadasat vilakshana. This is an absurd locution for Sri Ramanuja because such a locution violates the principle of non-contradiction, for it is inexpressible. Something is real or unreal, but it cannot be both and neither. It must be one of the two. The fifth objection is that the presence of Maya cannot be established by any valid means of cognition. Ignorance is absence of knowledge, and absence can never be perceived. To say that I perceive the absence of a rose on the table is as good as saying that I perceive the table, which exists as a positive entity. Maya cannot be inferred, for it lacks any peculiar characteristic. That is the reason why even Advaitins called Maya Anirvachaniya. If it is Anirvachaniya or indescribable, it cannot be inferred from anything. If it has any characteristic, then it must be a real entity. Then it cannot be called Maya. But according to Advaitins, it is not. It cannot be proved on the basis of scripture. According to the Veda, Maya is the mysterious power of Brahman. But for Advaitins, Brahman has no characteristic. Hence, it cannot have this mysterious power also. So, based on these 7 important arguments, Sri Ramanuja criticizes Shankara's Mayavada. Now, the Advaitic interpretation of Avidya is such that it cannot be removed even by knowledge. What is this knowledge? It is the knowledge of Brahman that removes the ignorance which is responsible for the knowledge of the world. Now, does this knowledge of Brahman have Brahman as its object, or is it the knowledge or consciousness that is the same as the being of Brahman? According to Advaita, Brahman can never be the object of any knowledge. It is same as one's Atman. Even the second alternative also does not remove that knowledge of the world, which is due to ignorance. The knowledge of myself does not remove the knowledge of the world. If Brahman is an object of my knowledge, then world is also an object of my knowledge. Thus there are two kinds of objects and two cognitions. Both can be treated as knowledge. How can one knowledge cancel the other? This is the argument advanced by Sri Ramanuja. Now, therefore, the knowledge of Brahman does not remove the knowledge of the world. Finally, if avidya is a positive entity, then its removal by knowledge is not possible. If ignorance means absence of knowledge of an object, then knowledge of that object removes that ignorance. If avidya is a positive entity, then it cannot be removed by knowledge. But according to Advaita, avidya is positive, therefore it cannot be removed. Now Sri Ramanuja's Brahman, unlike Shankara's, is a saguna. He rejects Shankara's distinction between nirguna and saguna aspects of Brahman, which I have already clarified. It is unity in difference and therefore contains within itself ultimate and indissoluble distinctions. The individual selves or souls and material objects of the world are related to Brahman as parts to whole. Brahman, in other words, is not qualityless, undifferentiated, but has real qualities. The three essential qualities or qualifications of Brahman are reality, that is Satyam, consciousness, Jnanam, and infinitude, Anantam. Sri Ramanuja holds that Brahman, God, is the creator, sustainer, and destroyer of the world. God creates the world out of his own will. But creation does not mean that creation is out of nothing. Since the souls or selves and matter coexist with God, creation means God's bringing the world of variety and multiplicity which they potentially present in him. God wills himself to be many and manifests himself as many in the form of animate and inanimate entities. Apart from that, creation is not an event in time in the sense of having an absolute beginning in time. The world goes through the cycles of evolution, Srishti, and dissolution, Pralaya, as per the will of God, who is the Lord of Karma. At the time of dissolution, God withdraws world into himself. Even in the state of dissolution, individual souls and matter remain distinct in Brahman because individual souls, Chit, and the world are eternal like Brahman. According to Sri Ramanuja, this Brahman is none other than Lord Vishnu. The souls or selves are subtle, sukshma, and infinitesimal, atomic, anuparimana, but eternal. The soul or self of Sri Ramanuja is not Atman, but only a jiva or empirical I, the ego. At the time of creation, God, by his act of will, manifests himself as souls and material objects. The kind of body that self receives depends upon its karma. However, God gives every self freedom of will. Therefore, he is not responsible for the good or bad karma of the individual. Like any other philosophical tradition, Sri Ramanuja too believes the law of karma holds good in the case of jiva, and each jiva is responsible for his or her own karma. Therefore, there is no interference of Lord in one's own karma. Now, the jiva or the self ends up in some kind of bondage. Sri Ramanuja holds that the self's bondage to the body is due to its karma. This karma is produced and sustained by the self's ignorance as to its true being. Ignorance makes self believe that it is identical with body or with some part thereof and develops desires and attachments to bodily existence. The general tendency of the self is to identify itself with non-self makes it egoistic. Liberation from ignorance, karma and bondage is to be attained through karma, jnana and bhakti margas. Every individual should perform the rites and ceremonies in accordance with his social duties, varna dharmas, and station in life as enjoined by the Vedas. Therefore, the study of Mimamsa, whose objective is to suggest the right performance of rituals and duties, is essential for a Visishtadvaitin. Every individual interested in liberation must study the Vedantic texts in order to know who he or she is apart from the nature of the world and God intellectually. As a result of study and reflection, man comes to know that in reality he is not identical with his body or any other material entity, but a part of God himself, who is the creator, sustainer, and destroyer of the universe. The spiritual aspirant must constantly remember God as his or her Lord and Savior. He or she should pray for God's mercy. The worshipper should completely surrender himself or herself to God for his grace. Such complete self-surrender is called prapatti. Unlike Advaita Vedanta, Visishtadvaita insists on Bhakti Marga as the sole path to liberation. Now, from this lesson, we come to know that the views of Shankara and Ramanuja with regard to the nature of ultimate reality are completely different. For example, in the process of learning this lesson, we came to know what is Visishtadvaita. It is Brahman which is qualified by Chit and Vichit. That is the reason we call this particular Vedanta Visishtadvaita Vedanta. What is the nature of reality? Unlike Shankara's Nirguna Brahman, Sri Ramanuja's Brahman is Sagunatmaka, and this Brahman is equated with Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the ultimate reality is none other than the Lord Vishnu. How is liberation possible? Liberation is possible only through Bhakti Marga and also through the process of self-surrender, prapatti. Then only the grace of the Lord is possible. So for further information, for further knowledge, kindly go through the suggested readings and also the textual content. Thank you.